I wanted America to see us as a good team. But I wish my son was more resilient. But that's one of his weaknesses right now. You know, and like I said on the show, some of that could be my fault.
That's Super Bowl winning quarterback Tony Banks, opening up like you've never heard him before. In this episode, we'll talk about legacy, mindset, family, and money, and what it's really like to come into wealth and try to hold it all together.
So, Mr. Tony Banks, let me ask you, what role did your pops play in helping you navigate becoming rich overnight?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know about the rich part overnight, because even when I got drafted in baseball out of high school, it was more money more money than he claimed on his taxes for a year. So he had never seen that much money at one time. Yeah. So we weren't great negotiators. We took the first offer. So, but my father, just in my life in particular, it's just he's been the main reason why I had any success. You know, I come from the inner city in San Diego and lived with my mom up until about the 9th grade, and moved in with my father in the 9th grade. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. What's the most challenging financial decision you had to make, like early on, and then maybe one that you had to face a little later in life?
Well, you know, going from no money to a lot of money. I mean, I was illegally getting paid by an agent when I was in college, and that was only like $400 a month. And that was a lot of money for me at the time. You know, I went through my baseball money already. So I think that was the biggest part, going from no money to some money, you know, not knowing how much homes cost, and not understanding how much your friends and family are going to be in your pocket. So when it comes to those variables, you know, learning how to say no was probably the biggest.
Talk more about that, because we got a lot of young athletes that watch the show here, and they, you know, have family members that reach out. I literally have a mentee that tells me every month he gets his NIL, he had an uncle that called him.
For sure.
And every month there was something new, the alternator, the brakes. He told me, the alternator costs $14,000. I said, bro, what kind of car you got? You driving a Lamborghini or something? Like, what kind of alternator costs $4,000? But how do you deal with that, saying no? You know, dealing with family.
It took me a minute. It took me until I was about to get married, you know. But my friend list started to shrink prior to that, because I wasn't saying no, but I wasn't returning calls. You know, I stopped answering my phone, which is still something I have an issue with today. When the phone rings, I'm still, what people want. You know, so it's kind of
PTSD.
a trigger. Yeah, it's a little bit of a trigger for me. So it took me a minute, but, you know, your family and friends can be the worst. You know, I grew up with a bunch of friends who might freestyle against each other. Then all of a sudden I get drafted and they really want to get into the rap game. I'm like, they want me to pay for studio time. I'm like, you know, I ain't even in town. I don't know what y'all doing. You want me to pay for a studio?
Sound like a scam.
Yeah. And then every time I got a new contract, my mom thought she needed a new house when it's just her and her husband. And me and my mom don't have a great relationship. So, but it's still hard to say, you know, no to your family and friends, because you want to help, because you hear the sob stories. I mean, it's never something simple, right? It's always this long, drawn-out story to where, you know, if I don't help them, they're on the street, you know. And I'm like, well, what if I wasn't in the league?
Right.
What would you do? So, but that's tough, you know, managing those relationships. Like I said, me and my mom don't speak very much because of that, because I took very good care of my father. But he never asked for anything. Right. You know, my father worked his tail off, you know, whereas my mom was on welfare, and then she got married, and I refused to take care of another grown man. It's not my dad.
Absolutely.
So that caused some problems in our relationship, but I stuck to my guns.
Yeah, man. What was there ever a time where you did invest in a business or someone to go on and do something? Because I heard a lot of stories. I worked for the NFL for 2 years. I remember a guy putting somebody through college. This ain't a stripper story, by the way. He put a young lady through college, but he had a relationship with the family, and he promised that, you know, hey, if I come into some wealth, I'm going to take care of this. So was there ever a time where you did kind of lean and do that?
The only time I invested any money in family or friends was my ex-wife is a chef. So her first cookbook, I invested in the first part of that.
But that's family. So, I mean, you got to do that, right?
I have not invested in any of my knucklehead friends. Much as I love them, that's not going to happen. You know? Right. So I was very frugal before I got married. I opened up a little bit after I got married, but I was like, mine. Every day, mine. Even my ex, before we got married, she'd come to visit, and I had just bought my first home, and my master bedroom had double sinks, which was big. That was a big deal for me. Had a hot tub and double sinks. And she used to come visit, and it would irritate me just to see her stuff at one of the sinks. I'm like, both are mine. They're not hers. They both mine.
So you just go in there and like push everything to the side.
As soon as she leaves that, all that stuff gets put up.
So like, did winning the Super Bowl change your financial situation? I know you weren't necessarily like to start a team at that time, but did that catapult you into a new era?
Well, before that year, I got my biggest contract of my career.
Okay.
So it was the most money I made, in my career. So it did put me in a different stratosphere as far as that goes. But even though I was married, I was still fairly frugal. I didn't have a bunch of cars. I barely let my wife, when we got married, drive any of my cars. That was still hard for me. It took some time. But so I kind of grew into the role of being that kind of more generous person. But that was with my wife, at the time. Not really other people. Some of her family I helped out a little bit.
Yeah. Where did the frugalness come from? You keep using that word, so I want to.
I think just like I had went through my baseball money, so I knew really, even though I was a fraction of what I was making in football, I know how that big number can shrink really quick. And I didn't have no rent to pay. I wasn't paying no bills other than my little car payment. I bought my first little car. And that money went pretty fast. So I knew from that experience that, and at the time, I think you could only take out, at least my account, I could only take out like $500 of cash. And I only dealt with cash because that's what my father did. He wasn't a credit card guy. Yeah. And I don't think there were debit cards back then.
No, not then.
So it was all the cash in your pocket. So I wasn't making it rain at the club. I was still getting the, burritos and, I wasn't going to Ruth Chris and Nick and Sam, stuff like that. So I think that helped.
No, that's good. That's good advice. So like, what was the difference in the way you viewed wealth from when you came in 96, second round, first quarterback in that draft, if I remember correctly?
Make sure you say that part.
But how did your view on wealth kind of change? Because, I mean, you're around guys making tons of money. You're around owners now. Like, how did it change from when you first came in the league to maybe 7 or 8, year 7 or 8?
Well, I think as I became that veteran in the locker room, right? Once you get to year 5 or 6 or whatnot, you're one of the older guys in the locker room because it's still, the average career is, like 3 years or something
3.5,
like that. So you're known as kind of the old head. So you would see the younger players. By that time, I had, had a home. I didn't, everything wasn't new that I was buying. When you come into the league, all these rookies, everything they buy is new. Their first home. They might buy their parents a home, their first car, furniture, all that stuff, which can be really expensive.
Absolutely.
And it just compounds, right? So I got to see rookies trying to live like the Leslie O'Neals, like the Tony Bankses, when they 6th-round draft picks, having a Ferrari parked outside a 1-bedroom apartment, no garage, just stuff like that, you know. So that definitely changed the way I looked at things, and I became one of those guys that would try to advise those guys, hey,
that's good.
You don't need 2-3 phones, man. You're gonna get caught up. You don't need 2-3 cars. Then they asking for advances from management, So, and once you get into that role, asking for advances as some of the players do, it's hard to not get that label from management. He's irresponsible. When's he gonna ask for money again? Every offseason, here we go. So it's just kind of being, as men, at least me, I'm a visual guy, so you get to see these things and see how some of these younger guys operate as opposed to the 10-year vet, which it's a monumental difference in,
Absolutely.
At least what you have going on. You've probably, if you bought a parent a home, you've probably done that already if you're, a vet. So, those rookies that come in, man, and they're low draft picks or free agents and they make the team, their first 6-figure check that they get over, a period of time, sometimes it's gone like immediately.
Let me ask you something. Do you guys pay taxes like now you're outside of the NFL and own your own business, so you know how kind of taxes work? Like, what's the difference between when you're a player and taxes at the end of the year versus being?
I think the biggest thing for me since I retired is incorporating myself, having an LLC, and I had my dad on salary, which really helped with some of my tax issues, because you're not making those big zeros anymore. Mostly, you're getting taxed on your capital gains. And so while I'm not, an expert, that did help me out when I put my dad on salary, even though he never asked for anything. I was giving him money every month, you know. And put my mom on salary too, even though I wasn't paying her as much. But,
got to take care of mom.
But you got to try
just
to
like
help,
in the rules,
I mean,
right?
I didn't want to be the terrible son, but I also didn't want to take care of this dude sitting around the house. So.
Right on, man. I totally understand. Even, having not been in the NFL, I don't want to take care of a grown man. So I can only imagine if I'm out there getting sacked and busting my butt and somebody calling me asking me for money.
No doubt. No doubt.
So, like, when it came to the owners, like, what did they put in place for players? I see you shaking your head no already.
There was
nothing in place to say, hey, here's $5 million. I know you came from poverty. I know you probably don't know what to do with this money, but here's some rules to go along with it.
Yeah, there was not much done. You had to learn from other vets. If you had good financial people that, kept you in the loop. Because some guys get drafted and they have these guys taking care of everything and they don't want to know anything.
Yeah.
Right? They just send me money on this date. I'm going to buy a car on this date. Send me money. So what was fascinating to me, I know this is not maybe part of your question. What was fascinating to me during my time in the league, me being a QB, you gotta be available and engaged with everybody. Right, so most of your offensive linemen are white at the time, and skill guys are black, coming from all over the place, and it was fascinating to me to see most of the brothers, except for one that I remember, always had the jewelry, couldn't wait to get the car, and then you got these white linemen, they just buy them a pickup truck, wearing Wranglers.
Yeah.
They're dressed up as like a Pendleton on the plane, and we got $5,000 suits and jewelry and rollies and, APs and all that. So I was always fascinated by that. Me being a quarterback, I used to take those linemen out all the time. And just little stuff like that, it gets you to, they might come from money or at least aren't intimidated by money, or can't wait. It's like burning a hole in their pocket,
exactly,
like it is for some of us. At least during my time playing. I don't know how these.
No. It still is. I work NIL, so it's the same way.
I can't wait to spend that money, right? Yeah. So, and even little stuff like I remember my first time with the Rams, I took my offensive lineman out for dinner. We go to a steakhouse out in St. Louis, and one of their questions to me, it's not finance related, but I thought it was pretty funny, and it goes along with what we're saying. One of their questions to me was, why do all black men order their steak well done? So I had to go into the kind of the history behind us cooking the hell out of the food because we didn't have a good cut.
Exactly.
Bridging those gaps sometimes can make a culture of a team much stronger.
Yeah. Now, we talk money moves and mindset on here. So everything that you're covering is spot on, man. Let me ask you this. How do you as a professional football player handle moments of self-doubt when it comes to not understanding money? Because like you're saying, man, unfortunately, it's still that way now. I was asking some of my mentees at TCU, so listen, they're paying you $70,000 a month. What have they put in place to help you guys with your money? And they were like, absolutely nothing. Yeah. And that's why, as the investment strategist, they put me in place to be able to help them with it. But when you kind of think back, like, what does that make you think about?
Well, they're very blessed to have you, I think, because when I came into the league, there was no rookie symposium, which is where they put some of those guys in front of you and speak about some of these things. And it doesn't always sink in because you speak into a room of 22-year-olds who just got fresh money in their pocket, So it sometimes goes in one ear and out the other, but you reach a few of those guys. Yeah. But I think it carries more weight when they can be spoken to by somebody who's not like a 10-year vet or a millionaire. Or,
so it actually helps to have somebody from outside.
I think so. A guy who's been in the league 3 years. What are you doing now? Like, how did you, now you're 25 and your career's over, which is most of those guys in that audience are going to be that way. So I think that's more impactful.
Or not make it at all, right?
They might make it at all. Yeah. So when the Emmitt Smiths and all these Emmets gets paid for appearances, he don't have to do nothing. Who knows what his, he's not Shaq at least. He's not everywhere on TV and got all these endorsements. So most of those players aren't going to live that life, So I think the NFL still needs to work, and I'm sure the NBA is probably something similar because you want to get that big shiny person in front of them to think that's going to make them listen when, they want to hear about that guy's career, not his money, right? Because, even if they do want to hear about the money, again, a guy who struggled, that only been in the league a couple years, and now he had to go get a real job. That, to me, that's more impactful than the Hall of Famer up there who can just show up at a signing and get
$50,000-$60,000. Yeah, so how am I listening to this guy? Let me ask you this in regards to when you think about where college sports is going now. So you mentioned that you were getting paid on the side a little bit, you know, back in the day. Statute of limitations, so they can't get y'all that now, right?
My Ageless Little Runner already came out and told on me.
Like, okay. Well, then we ain't got to worry about it then. We're not breaking no news here then.
Yeah, don't let me find him.
But when you think about these guys getting the money that they're getting now, what could be in place other than someone like myself? But think about the NFL as well. Like, what could be put in place from the NFL's perspective?
I would love to see something done with the parents.
Okay.
Because even as 22-year-olds, most of us inner city kids listen to our mom or dad, right? Yeah. And to educate the parents on how long their career might be. Mm-hmm. If you want, you know, your grandkids to have, you know, their college paid for, maybe you don't want to do A, B, and C. You know, let them stack some cheese before you start asking for big ticket items, right? I would love for the NFL to be able to find a way to interact with those parents, because literally when you're from the inner city and your son gets drafted, that they feel like everybody got drafted, right?
Yeah.
We all made it.
Moving on up.
Yeah. Even I had buddies of mine, and when we were kids, like, you know, some of them thought that I was going to do something in sports, right? So they'd be like, when you make it, I'm coming with you, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, all you gonna live in one house, like a frat house, you know.
Would you check them at the door then, or you?
I did that with a couple of my buddies, and they were supposed to either go to school or get a job. None of my buddies did either. You know, they was living for free. Come home, the house smell like weed.
Oh,
you know.
Man, that's crazy, bro.
So I would do those things differently, and some of those friends I don't have anymore. I've reconnected with a couple of them, but you know, we had falling outs, and me spending way more money than I should have on some grown man that, again, is not my father.
Yeah,
you know? So trying to live my lifestyle, you know, going in my closet when I ain't there, you know, thinking I'm gonna let you drive my car. No, man,
no, taking my keys with me to the game.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. I know you and your family are coming off a short stint on the show on Fox we were talking about earlier. So when you think about the decision to do that, how do you feel now on the other side of it?
Well, I wish we could have lasted longer, for sure. I think we were
that $250,000 would have been nice, right?
And we're a good team. I wanted America to see us as a good team.
Yeah.
Now, worst case scenario, it wasn't like I was so surprised that my son blew up. I've seen it before. Just hoping it wouldn't be on national television. You know, he's an 18-year-old who, you know, he's had a little bit of rough patch with football. He's only wanted to play football his whole life. And when that injuries and that didn't work out the way he thought it would, and then his grandmother passed before, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer about a month before we went on the show.
Wow.
And my son's really close to this. Is his mother's mom. So he was dealing with that going in there too. But, you know, if I have any regrets, it's that America got to see the worst case scenario of my son. I think they got to see me and my ex-wife. We've been divorced a long time, and we're still a good team. You know, we still got love for each other. So I wanted America to see that. But I wish my son was more resilient, but that's one of his weeknesses right now, you know, and like I said on the show, some of that could be my fault, because he's lived with me most of his life. You know, we got divorced when he was not even 5 years old.
Oh,
wow. It's been 13 years, going on 14 years that we've been divorced. And she lives
for the
close,
most part. But I'm saying, pops.
But then I was also his head coach, his quarterback coach, his play caller, which I thought would be cool. I would have loved for my dad.
Oh, bro.
If he had my experience.
They build different, though.
Yeah.
This generation, they build different.
So
that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we're talking about mindset, right?
For sure.
But keep going.
For sure. I would have loved for him to show a little more resiliency, because he was going to be warmer that night, right? Yeah. He had a sleeping bag.
Yeah, y'all had him set up.
We got him everything.
Yeah.
Right? And what they don't show on TV, he's threatening us before we get him the care package or whatever it is, the drop box or whatever it is. He's like, if I don't get fishing line, I'm out of here. If I don't get fire, I'm out of here. And I mean, Yolanda would be like, well, we got him all that. What are you going to say now? And he was almost disappointed that we got him everything. Because now he's like, man, what can I say now?
Exactly. Because it went to the next level after that.
For sure.
Yeah, man.
And Yolanda was pretty staunch on not pulling him out of there.
She was.
But she thought he would learn a lesson by even getting worse. And I was not in agreement. You know, I'm like, I'd like for him to learn a lesson away from these cameras. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm a father. I'm protecting my family.
Yeah.
You know,
and as a black
provide,
man, I mean, you have to be cognizant of these things, right?
For sure, man. And with how social media is, you know, social media was hard on him about football when he had some injuries, and he won't stop looking at it, you know. So I didn't want that to continue to get worse. And even though he's taken a beating and I've taken a beating on social media since, I mean, they're on to the next thing. It's pretty much died down.
Yeah.
Which I try to get my son and his mom to understand, because she's like, we need to change the narrative. We need to get out here and change the narrative. I was like, we need to just
let it die.
And let it die. Exactly.
Because now you bring it back up, the algorithm catches it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You and I were talking earlier about the documentary. You weren't up to speed on it, but on Amazon, where they talk about the history and evolution of black quarterbacks. You came in the league in '96, coming out of Michigan State. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw in regards? Because that's like the prime time for the NFL. Like, we're in the middle of the 90s, the Cowboys has, created a dynasty, the San Francisco 49ers. Football is everywhere. So can you talk about being a black quarterback in the middle of that decade and what you saw?
Well, I'll talk a little about leading up to that, first of all. Like, as a kid, the little bit of football I played in youth leagues, I didn't play in high school till my junior year, but
which is crazy. Every time I hear you say that, I'm like, bro, how you pick up football in the 11th grade?
Yeah, it was all this guy right here. But I grew up as a quarterback watcher. You know, you talked about Shaq Harris, James Harris. You know, I had football cards of him. I collected football cards. You know,
me too.
And I always put the black quarterback in there when you set them all up. I used to play 11 on 11 with my little football cards. Right? These kids today know nothing about that.
They don't know
right?
nothing
The
about
little
it.
vibrating football game.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. I'm a 78 baby, so I was there on that one.
But I remember Tony Rice, Rodney Peete,
man.
Major Harris, Warren Moon. You know, I'm on the West Coast, so I got to see Warren a little bit. These guys wouldn't even get a shot, not even a tryout, which was amazing to me, because my cousin played for SC, with Marcus Allen during the 80s and all that, and I grew up as an SC fan, and Rodney Peete was my guy. Like, I wanted him to beat Troy Aikman. It was UCLA, USC all the time. That was the game. My cousin playing there previously, we went up to those games all the time. Wow. So as a kid, you get to see these guys not get drafted, not get a shot, or have to go to Canada. So that's part of the reason I didn't play football for a chunk of time during my youth, because, I really thought I'd get drafted in baseball. And during basketball season, I thought I could go play college basketball. Right? But football, I was like, man, I really love, playing QB, but do I even have a chance to go pro? Like, would it just be for nothing?
Dang.
But then we fast forward to '96. I think me and Jeff Blake were the only black starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Cincinnati Bengals, right? Yeah.
So I think I'm undefeated against him too.
Okay.
Make sure we put that out there, because he thinks he threw the best deep ball during our time, and I beg to differ. But anyways, we were the only two starting black quarterbacks at the time, because Warren Moon was in the league but wasn't starting at that particular time. He had a good stint, and then I think he was playing for Seattle, I think, during that time.
Yeah, because he came in Houston,
Yeah.
and then he bounced around a little bit.
There you go. Yep. So yeah, I was proud of that. But also what they looked for at the time. Like, when I came out, Tommy Frazier was the Heisman Trophy winner from Nebraska.
Forget about him.
And there were a ton of quarterbacks that were mobile that came to the combine.
Yeah.
But I was probably one of the only ones that wasn't asked to try out for another position.
Wow.
Now, those guys actually probably could have played another position. I just looked like I could. They compared me to Randall Cunningham, and I couldn't run like that dude.
Yeah,
but
man.
So the whole evolution to me is really fun to watch now. When my career ended, I was a purist. I thought the NFL game wouldn't change. Everything was about reading coverages and making difficult throws. Now the game has evolved into you still have to make some tight window throws, but the game has evolved into this horizontal game where you're throwing a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage attached to your run game, which simplifies the game more. Back in my day, if you weren't Marino or Elway, you weren't starting as a rookie. If you weren't that type of guy,
Right.
you weren't starting as a rookie. And now you see the Jaden Daniels of the world, and almost every high drafted quarterback gets to play their rookie year, which was unheard of at the time. They drafted me thinking I was going to sit behind Mark Rippon and Steve Walsh, but I was a pretty arrogant dude. I love me some Mark Rippon, not so much Steve Walsh.
Yeah.
But I was, after the first preseason game, I moved up to third. Second preseason game, I moved up to second. And after that last preseason game, I thought I won the job, but I was a rookie.
Right.
And I had missed 4 games my senior year of college with an injury, but I think I led the NFL in preseason quarterback rating. I just lit it up in the preseason. So I thought I would be the starter coming out of training camp, but they were so hesitant to start a rookie. They just paid Steve Walsh a bunch of money, but he was so bad. He was so terrible, especially for our offense. We were vertical offense. We had Eddie Kennison, who was a freaking, the fastest man in the NFL.
You had Isaac Bruce on the other side. Yeah.
So everything was down the field. Everything was, which fit my game.
Right.
Didn't fit Steve Walsh's game. So, but to see this evolution now, I was still part of that era where the black quarterback might not be smart enough to make checks at the line of scrimmage. That was the
narrative
with even Randall Cunningham, who I just loved getting. Like 1996 was his first year out of the league, and maybe a year before that, he was Offensive Player of the Year. Like he was the man. But there was just this after the whole Philly thing, there was this kind of conversation about Randall that he wasn't smart enough. So it just continued with me, always getting compared to Randall. So me scoring high on the Wonderlic was part of the reason that I got drafted so high. Because it was still that stigma. Can he compute? Can he process this information? But I also played my senior year for Nick Saban, and we had a pro-style offense. So Nick could say he had just came out of the league with Belichick with Cleveland, so he could say when he told those evaluators, hey, this guy can do it, they believed him.
Yeah.
But Tommy Frazier didn't get a shot. All these other guys were like excited. Not Tommy. He didn't work out with receivers because he was coming off a Heisman. He thought he was better than he was as far as throwing the football.
Yeah.
But all the other black quarterbacks at the time that were in my group in the combine, they were happy to work out at running back or receiver.
Just to get in the league,
just to get a shot because they knew that the stigma was out there.
Right.
And they wanted to maybe play quarterback, but also understood that they might not get that shot. If they want to play in the league, this might be the route you got to take.
Yeah. What's my man that came out of Florida? Charlie Ward.
Oh.
Yeah, Charlie Ward is a great example. He wasn't in your class, though, right? He was a little bit behind you, right?
2000. He was in front of me.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he's older than me.
Okay. Because he went and played basketball instead of switching position. Yeah. All right, so
in today's game, Charlie would be such a hot commodity.
Oh, bro, he's Kyler Murray.
Oh,
he's Kyler Murray.
Bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger Kyler Murray.
He's 5'11", so yeah. What steps have you taken to secure generational wealth for the Banks family?
Not as much as I should.
Okay.
But, like I said, I give myself a salary pretty much every year out of my investment account. And I have my 401k and annuities and my investment account. So it's a nice number when it's all said and done, but I might still have to pay for my son's college because he ain't a scholarship athlete yet. He still wants to try again. And I'm not big on working a 9 to 5. So I've done things in my life like being able to say no, and I have some family members that have been in and out of prison, and I just try not to help too much. And it's much easier when you're a father, right? It's like you're taking money out of your kids' mouth, taking food out of your kids' mouth. So the things that I've done is just be conservative. Like I would recommend not getting divorced because that took a chunk. That definitely took a chunk.
That's never a good thing.
She could have took more, but she's a decent woman, but it was still a chunk.
Yeah.
And I had built a home out in a private golf community at the time when all those interesting loans were available, like in when I built that house in 2006.
Oh, you were right in the thick of it.
Yeah. So, and I was fortunate that when I did get divorced, I put that house on the market, and it didn't last long on the market. There were a lot of inventory at the time. In like 2010 is when I sold it. And some people just got ruined by their homes not selling, even in the community I was in, because some of that, even that oil money that run out
Run
to
out.
some of that new
Yeah.
oil money.
And we're starting to see that kind of be a trend now.
Yeah.
When you look at the housing market and where it's going in the next
Sure.
year or so. But that's a whole nother conversation.
And I think one of the main things is my lifestyle is nothing like it once was.
Yeah.
Like I have a nice home, my son, private school, great education, but I'm not caught up in how it looks,
Yeah.
You see me, I got an Apple Watch, no more jewelry, no more diamonds in my ears, no more big, 12-karat cross,
Yeah.
no more rollies.
Well, once you get 45, that's kind of ridiculous for you anyway. So
yeah, for sure.
What you do with all your stuff? Did you sell it off, give it to your kids? Like, what have you?
Unfortunately, at that house I told you I built at the time, we went down to Houston for one day, and our house got broken into.
Oh,
So
no.
all I ended up with was the stuff that I was wearing at the time.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow.
They took everything.
Dang.
They took everything. And then the insurance check came back, and I was like, "This way
A quarter of percent, right? Yeah.
Well,
don't get me talking about
you know how it
insurance.
is. You get it insured for more maybe than what it's worth.
Yeah.
So when I got that check, I was like, I can't believe we had this much money in jewelry. It was a big check, When you're buying that stuff,
Yeah.
And I had a jeweler at the time, so yeah. So, yeah, man. Yeah.
What happened to all of the frugalness
Yeah.
that we were talking about?
That's what I'm saying. After I got married and I got that big contract in Baltimore, that's where I found that nice Jewish jeweler. I'm like, ooh, what can we make today?
Exactly, right? What we? Everybody's speaking French, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I want to thank you, man, and just tell you you've been a solid guy since I met you, man. We haven't known each other very, very long, but I just want to compliment you on an amazing career, man, being an amazing father. I told you that night, I texted you, I said, man, I get it, bro. And
I appreciate that.
you're going to work through this thing, man. So as we kind of close out today, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions. So I want you to just say the first thing that comes to mind, man. All right, here we go. Stocks, real estate, or crypto?
Stocks.
Why?
Just because it's been consistent for me, over
Okay.
a long haul period of time, and I know nothing about crypto. I'm big on investing in the only things I have some idea about. So yeah, no crypto.
All right, we got to talk then because you got to get in on that. What's your splurge item, or what was your splurge pastime?
Jewelry.
Okay, obviously.
Yeah.
All right. If you could talk to yourself draft day 1996, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh, I would do something like Travis Kelce. When I think he was one of the first ones I heard that only spends his endorsement money, his money he makes off the field. I would try to do something like that. Like just have a smaller budget. Even though I was frugal at the time, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Rams, Ravens, or Redskins / Commanders?
Ooh. I mean, statistically, my best years were with the Ravens and won a Super Bowl there. So
Absolutely.
I
Okay. All right. Isaac Bruce.
a little bitter.
Did you get in that game?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
All right. You're on the books then. Isaac Bruce or Missile Ishmael?
Isaac.
All right. What's one thing you believe every young person should do with their money? Regardless if they go to the league, become a professional doing something else, like what's one thing they should do?
Young person with their money, I would say stay away from drugs and liquor. That stuff adds up, man.
It does. It does. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you, brother.
I don't think you.
Yeah.
To maybe stretch that out a little bit. When you get money, you don't become a better person, in my opinion. Right? If you're drinking heavily when you don't have money, and you're smoking heavily when you don't have money, you get money. It's not like you're going to stop those bad habits.
Yeah.
It just ends up you buy better liquor and you buy better weed. So that's what I would tell young people that are on the verge of maybe getting money. And also, take notes from our offensive lineman friends and get you one vehicle and, try to live the lifestyle that your checks say as opposed to what the other guy in the locker rooms.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Money Moves and Mindset with my man, Tony Banks. Think and Grow Rich.